COVID has forced us somewhat to move to, as a church, to move into the 2000s and embrace some technology pieces that maybe we could have been looking at earlier. We just, for whatever reason, just didn't necessarily dive into it. And COVID has kind of pushed us to realize that there are ways that we can exist in community, in worship, pastoral care, relationships, program-wise. There's all sorts of things that we can do that aren't as good as one-on-one in person. There's nobody will ever say that electronic community replaces one-on-one individual relationships, but it gives us a chance to offer some relationship and some worship experience. And so we've had a year of this, and we're all learning some things. I guess what I want to give a little bit of information about is, just before we get going and I introduce our wonderful people who are going to be speaking with us. When we were planning this session or this sort of webinar, we were trying to figure out what would be most beneficial for people, sort of in the broadest spectrum. And we realized that holding sort of a technical workshops where we dive into the technical details of how to do this and how to do that probably wouldn't be really effective, at least off the start, just because we're coming from so many different contexts. Each of us brings different levels of competence, but also confidence to try new things. Each of us is in different communities, so we might have different limitations or opportunities for some of the technical resources available to us. And so we thought, rather than getting into a workshop, maybe what we can do is have more of a discussion with a panel of folks who have been doing different parts of online worship for the last year. Get them to share a bit of their wisdom. And I do mean wisdom. Like we joke about it in terms of, what are we bringing in terms of expertise? But they do bring a lot of wisdom, and many of the rest of you do too. But wisdom to share in terms of some of the things that have worked, some of the things that haven't worked, and also I think more importantly for tonight, why we're doing this, like as a motivation, as part of our ministry. Before you guys came on, Ken said he's not in ministry. I'd argue with him a bit. He is in ministry. This technology and online worship is an essential ministry for people who are not only at home, but people who may not be able to attend regular worship when we start back again, if and when we get there. There are new ways that the church is learning to reach out and exist with each other. So I think that's an important discussion point. Now, none of that is to say that we don't want this to be an open discussion. That's certainly, if people have questions, we want to make sure we get to those. But I guess what we're sort of anticipating in terms of a format is we've got Sherry and Daryl and Ken, and I'll introduce them shortly. We've got a series of questions that we've sort of posed to them as a bit of a panel that they've been giving some thought to and share their considerations and ideas. Certainly encourage you to ask any questions as they go. And something to keep in mind is that this doesn't have to be the last time we gather. This may be the first step towards setting up more of those type of specific workshops where we find people that need a specific, like online worship 101. What's the first thing you got to do? How do you plug in a computer? We can offer that and have a few people take part in that. We don't need to have 30 people because some of us are past that. At the same point, maybe there's another one that's a very advanced level where people are learning to do whole different levels of video editing and software manipulation, all that sort of thing, which is so far beyond most of us that's not going to help as a big group either. So, but we can sort of target, get a sense of where people's needs are. And after all this is done, I would have loved to have had it ready ahead of time, but I didn't. I'll send out kind of an assessment tool to you, say, feedback from you, but also a chance to sort of say, here's some more information I'd like to connect with, or here's some ideas that have come out of this discussion that I'd like to explore more, or here's just some basic resources I'd love to get a handle on. So we can provide those. That's the goal, is just, it's all more networking. So that's, I'm sorry, that's a bit of my long spiel about what we're expecting for this evening. I hope that meets your needs and expectations. I think I mentioned it, maybe some of you weren't on when we did. We will be recording this, so it's all available online anytime, and for other people who aren't able to attend as well. I think that's the last. Oh, something I should mention too is, in terms of sort of the technical next steps, one of the pieces we might look at is, rather than workshops, we might be able to set up sort of mentorships, where rather than having a bunch of people in a room, we may be able to say that Daryl's congregation has a very specific need. Sherry has a very specific skill. She can actually connect with Daryl's congregation and provide sort of that one-on-one, hold your hand as we're doing some things. That might be a possibility for some of the stuff we can pull together. So I guess I just want to open that up, let you know that there's a bunch of options, and we're certainly open to trying as much as we can. Just, has anybody left in a huff? No? Okay. All right. I guess that our starting point is all right. I have the pleasure first, maybe I think the honor of starting off with a prayer. So if we could take a moment, and just however you need to collect yourself to recognize that the Spirit of God works across the Ethernet. Let's pray. Our God of Easter, of hope, new life, and new beginnings, be with us as we gather this evening. Just as the Spirit found ways to break through the barriers of communication to empower the entire church at Pentecost, we're discovering new ways to share in ministry, community, worship, and mission together. Bless all who are here, inspire our time together, and infuse our group with spirit, laughter, and creativity. In Jesus' name we live, in Jesus' name we love, and in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. And now it is my honor to introduce, and we're going to see how this works. I've got three friends who I was so pleased responded to a request to take part in this. So I'll do a quick introduction, but let them introduce themselves afterwards, because I think they'll be humble about it. So Daryl Woods is in ministry at Grace Westminster Church in Saskatoon, and I've known Daryl for a lot of years, and Daryl is a very innovative guy. He's innovative, creative, and very humble in the way he does things too. So I'm fascinated by Daryl's perspective on ministry and on worship. Lots of good things. Sherry, I've also known for a lot of years, actually. Sherry is the lead of the tech team at Mayfair United Church, also in Saskatoon. I have to apologize. Our geographic diversity is not good. All of the people here are from Saskatoon. That does not mean that Saskatoon is the only people that know about technology. Sherry is head of the tech team at Mayfair. She also runs a company called Faith Productions. And so one of the areas that she focuses on in that work, or got started in, it was live streaming for funerals. I think that was even before COVID, right, Sherry? And it sort of took off during COVID, a little bit of both. So Sherry brings just a wealth of experience in terms of some of the live streaming work that happens, and all of the stress that can go into that as well. Ken Glover, I've known you guys for a long time. Ken is the lead of the tech team at St. Martin's United Church. Ken likes to think that he's quietly behind the camera and isn't, nobody sees him, but Ken see, what we see is the results of Ken's work. Ken has created some really helpful videos that are sort of like the basics of how to, like explaining, there's a great video that I think is on the Regions YouTube channel that I stole from him that talks about how to use some of the music software that allows people to record together from distances when they online or on their phones and things. So it's just a really great sort of a creative sense, but also a down-to-earth sense on what people need. So a little bit of background. The reason all of these people are here is because they're very good at what they do, but also they know how to speak in a normal language. Sometimes techie stuff gets way over our heads and it's even Pentecost, we can't understand what they're saying. But Daryl and Sherry and Ken are really good at putting things in perspective in words that we understand. So I'm so pleased they're here. I'm going to start off. My job is to ask some questions and let them share as much as they can. I think if you have questions, what's the best way to do it? Probably the chat, I would think, is if you can sort of type some things in chat. Sean Sanford Beck, who I forgot to introduce, he's here as well. He's with St. Andrews College, and he's sort of helping on the tech side in the background. So let's roll. I will start. The first question, basically, guys, is who are you? What does your church currently do for online worship service? And what's your job? What do you do? So this is your chance to say hello. Who wants to go first? Daryl?
Sure, I can do that. After that glowing introduction, what can I say? I am the minister in ministry with the folks at Grace Westminster. We are currently live streaming our services every week to Facebook and through Facebook, which is how we started a little over a year ago. We basically showed up, plugged the camera into a computer and said, here we are, and we'll try and do this. And my job now is to provide worship leadership. And I also, we use a software program called vMix for our streaming of our services. And I put together a lot of the details into vMix, like little titles, and put the various pieces, they're called inputs. And so we just plug them into the program. And we have a very capable person who operates the computer and pops the pieces up at the appropriate time throughout the service. So that's me. Over to you, Sherry.
Over to me?
Sure.
All right. Well, I have to preface with saying that I have way more questions than I have answers, I believe, in this whole area, but I'll do what I can today. Like Kent said, I'm from Mayfair United Church, have done many different roles there, and but never did like tech stuff. Like I did some website stuff, but I was never like running the PowerPoint or anything like that. It was more, I was into youth leading and church school and worship committee, different committees and that. Now a friend of mine says, you're in video ministry is what you're in. So that's kind of, if you wonder if you're in ministry, it could be video ministry. And so right now, when this all happened, so about a year ago, they pulled me aside and said, do you think you can help with some live stream? And had done very little of that. So that is something that we jumped into and hopefully have improved over a whole year while we're all kind of learning together. And so that's my job, is to run the live stream every Sunday. We do record once in a while. If we have a couple in a row, we'll do a live stream and then we'll record for the next Sunday, so that we do, there's a few of us that then we get a day off. So we like to do that once in a while, but mainly we do the live stream. So that's me. Over to Ken.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ken Glover. I'm a volunteer. I don't think I'm the head of the tech team per se at St. Martin's United Church here in Saskatoon. I've been doing sound at St. Martin's for a number of years, and I'm also a IT guy. So I bring a lot of that technical experience with me. And Kathy Anderson, who is also on the call here, does our video editing for our Sunday services. These days we record on Friday. And then we all go home, and Kathy spends a good deal of time on Saturday editing, putting together the final service, and then we put it up on YouTube on Sunday morning for people. So we are not currently live streaming. We are starting to get ready for live streaming because I think that's going to be something in the future. And when the pandemic started, we were actually in a pretty good place because we had a good web presence. We were already recording our services and posting recordings on YouTube. And so we were a bit ahead of the curve on some of that. And then so we just kind of moved into the pre-recording and stuff like that. And it's evolved a lot over the years. So so that's who I am and what we're currently doing at St. Martin's United Church.
It sort of picks up a little bit. The second question is something Daryl alluded to, some of what they're using at Grace Westminster, but I know people are interested often in what are some of the options for the actual technical software and sort of the software and equipment that tends to work together, and there's all sorts of varieties on that. Are you guys, if you know, are you cool with sharing sort of what your setup looks like in somehow describing that in terms of both your equipment, software, like how many people are involved in operating that, and then the hard question, and I don't know if you have the answers to this, like do you have any idea what that costs? Like just a general, like that's always a starting question for congregations as they're getting into this stuff is how do we dip our feet into this, dip our feet in and still be effective, rather than, we don't want to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for something that we don't know if it'll work, but we also don't want to spend $10 and then say it didn't work. So yeah, maybe we can go backwards this time. Ken, can you give us a sense of that?
Sure. So in terms of our recording right now, what we've got is a couple of cameras that are set up in the middle of the sanctuary. And one person who is kind of operating the cameras as we're doing the recording. We have a fair bit of stuff that is pre-recorded. So our scripture readings, prayers, our reflections, a lot of things are pre-recorded now. So it's kind of funny because we go into the church and we record about 10 minutes worth of the liturgy around the service. And then we all go home and nobody in that room has actually seen the whole service until we see it on Sunday morning. So that's a bit different experience. So we've got a couple of cameras. One is just an older video camera. One is actually a still camera that will take some video. You could use one of these things. We all carry them in our pocket now. So set one of those up, easy way to record. And then the sound comes into our soundboard and we record it into a little Zoom recorder that we had. I don't think it's the same company that makes the Zoom meeting software, but it very well might be. And the key with that is that it's a recorder that will take a line in instead of a microphone in. So it records really clean sound. You can also get little devices that would hook up to your computer that would just hook into your USB port, and you'd be able to plug your soundboard into that and get good clean sound recorded on that way. In terms of software, there's a program called Audacity that I use for sound editing. And it is open source free. I will post some links to some of these things in the chat when I'm done talking. And so that one's really easy. We record the piano 1 week, and then we put it the piano recording up on a software platform called BandLab. And that's where people can then, we have a group of people who will then go in during the week and record their voice onto onto that. So then we've got the hymns sung by multiple people. And so that goes on there, and Thursday or Friday, I will pull down those, mix them so that I balance the levels, pull down those, and then put them together with the slides for video. In terms of video editing, Kathy Anderson does the video editing. She uses a paid product, Premiere Pro. Because she happened to have it already. She had it as part of a package for some photo editing, I believe. I did some looking early on in the pandemic because I realized we were in a bit of a vulnerable position and only having one person who knew how to do video editing. So I evaluated some free options, and the easiest one to get started with for the kinds of things that we were doing was one called OpenShot. It's very easy to use, especially if if you've recorded a bunch of stuff on something like this and you just want to, cut out the bad parts, maybe insert another video and stuff like that in between, and then render it all out as a single video. So that's another piece that I use as well. And then if you want to get really in depth in the video editing and the capabilities that they use for making, TV shows and commercials and stuff like that. Another product that I've looked at and taught myself is DaVinci Resolve. And again, there is a free version of it. So everything I'm using in terms of software is free software. So you can't argue with the price. And there's lots of stuff on YouTube to teach yourself various pieces with it. So that's kind of the setup. I did do, if people are interested, I did do a little video once on how we actually do our videoing, and it's on the St. Martin's YouTube channel. I can dig that up, or Kathy, if you're listening, you could dig it up too and drop it in the chat if people want to watch it at some point, because it kind of walks through what we do in a little bit. So Sherry, your turn.
Well, I'll start with our audio because we are just using our house sound from the sanctuary. And so that's the church audio. And we are just getting a new soundboard installed because we did not have the capability of running a different mix to our live stream as opposed to what we have in the house, which was fine when when we don't have anybody in the sanctuary. But once we go to in person and we want to do both, we definitely decided we needed to have those two mixes. So we're in the process of that, and that's all church owned. So the other thing that we did is at the beginning is decide that we needed someone else besides me that was going to be able to do this because it's all my equipment. So that we use for the rest of it at the moment anyway, because we want to make sure that this all works. And what I want to make sure is what I'm going to recommend to the church to buy and to purchase, it will be that it works for what we need. So that's kind of what the hesitancy is to buy our own. So I'm using all my equipment, and then our council chair, Glenn, has been really great at jumping in and learning everything. And he has this similar equipment to me. We both have MacBooks. I think he has the Air, I have the MacBook Pro, and we have cameras. And our cameras, the reason I really like the cameras that bring the audio in, so using XLRs straight into the camera, it gets rid of that problem with syncing your sound. So a lot of times you'll have, if you have a separate input into your computer with audio and then your video, you have sometimes a syncing issue that you have to deal with. So when your sound's coming right through your camera, and then your camera and your sound are both going through that converter and into your computer, it's all there. So that's kind of our setup. And then when it gets into the computer, we're using the OBS, which is your open broadcasting software, and that's free. You can download that, and that's for Mac or IBM, whatever. And YouTube we do, so YouTube Studio I use. We rarely need to edit because we do just live stream most of the time. And when we're recording, I don't stop very often. Like I just say, unless something goes horribly wrong, because I don't want to do the editing. I've done kind of a complete 180 because in the beginning I'm such a perfectionist that I was like, let's do each section and I can edit it and it's gonna go up. And then now I just would rather we live stream so that I don't have to go home and do that work. And we're done Sunday morning, 1 hour, well, an hour to set up, an hour to shoot, and we're done. So, but when I do edit, I like to use iMovie. It's simple, it's easy to use. It comes with all the Mac stuff. So, and I don't know, what else do you want to know?
That's helpful.
Wise, again, like I really like to look at iPad. I do have an iPad Pro as well, and I love this. I don't know if anyone uses the Switcher app, but it gets rid of all those components. You don't need to have your camera and your switch, like you have your camera on your iPad, and it also, you can hook up however many phones you want. So it's all iOS. So you could have phones donated, or you could have used whoever's phone is there. As long as they have the app on it, you can use it as a camera. And then the app on Switcher, it goes right to Facebook if you want, or YouTube, and you can just switch it right on the app. So you don't, it kind of gets rid of all of those things or puts them all into one. And I'm looking at that because I think it might be more financially feasible for our church, but I haven't tried it on a Sunday yet. So I'm not sure, but that's the two setups I would look at.
Thanks, Ray.
Well, we're using a Windows 10 based computer. We just actually upgraded. We started out with an older computer, and we upgraded the computer last June, I guess. And we got I'm using an HP Pavilion gaming laptop because it has a video card in it, so it's a little bit less pressure on the processor that way. So we're using that. The camera, we got a little JVC Vario full HD camera for $60 off Facebook Market. One of the actually it's sort of a young person, and he.
I think we lost you there, Daryl.
Sorry,
we just lost your sound there for a second.
Okay. We are just using a little JVC Vario camera. It's a little camcorder, and we got it for $60 off of Facebook Marketplace. So that's what we're using for our audio, but we did have to buy a video capture card, which we had to plug it into to get it into the computer. We couldn't hook it up direct. When we first started, I had an old digital tape camera that I had at home, and that's what we plugged in with, and that was what we were using for our sound initially too. And it wasn't very good because there was so much echo in the sanctuary. It just sounded like you were in a barn. And so now we're actually using a little 2-channel USB audio interface that so everything's run through our phone board now. We have multiple microphones. We have 2 on the organ. We have a mic in the middle of the sanctuary just to kind of pick up other sound. We have microphones for each individual. We have someone leading the hymns each week, so we have a microphone for them. I have my own microphone. The piano is mic'd as well. So everything runs through our sound system and then out through this little interface into the computer. So that's our audio. And we can control the master control through the vMix program, which we use, which is similar to the free program that Sherry was talking about. So everything goes in there, and the audio, we pre-record anything that's pre-recorded, we use as inputs and just pull it up within vMix. So you can put all those various pieces into the computer. So everything goes through the computer. We have one person running the camera. We have one person on sound, and we have one person operating the computer to switch to the various pieces as the service flows through. And we, like you, Sherry, find that live streaming takes a lot less time for us because, like, I mean, it's an hour, and yes, sometimes there's screw ups and things happen, but we don't have to invest quite as much time. We've also developed, we're just in the process of developing teams to do the various tasks. So we have 2 people who will come and do sound and camera and for a couple of weeks, and then 2 weeks, another 2 people will come in. So we're trying to get a couple of teams so that people can have a break and they don't have to be there every Sunday, because it's a big commitment for the volunteers. I mean, for you, Ken and Sherry, I mean, it's a big commitment of time, and we're so blessed to have those people with those skill sets to do that for us. Our total cost for the hardware and software, I think, was about $1,300. The only other thing that I didn't mention is we're also using vMix allows you to see full screen what you're streaming. So we have it's an infrared, I think, or I'm not sure actually how it works, but anyways, it's a box that plugs into the computer, and then it streams to the our projector, which we have at the front. We have a big screen at the front, and we have the projector there so we can see what's going out on the screen. And I think that's probably about it for us. The vMix software is not free. When I first started using it, I thought, man, this is really great, because they were offering it for free, and they even extended the thing for another month. So you got 3 months to use it for free, and it was $60. And I thought, well, that's not bad. But when I actually got into finding out and using it and paid for it, it ended up costing us $500 to get what we needed to use for the software. It's really good software. It's relatively easy to use. It has a lot of great features on it, but it was a bit of a surprise. And I think that Open Broadcasting does the same job, and it's free. So.
Was that just a one-time cost though, then, Daryl?
It is, yeah. Yeah. And you get upgrades for a year, like free upgrades, so.
Okay, thanks, you guys. So we were talking about how, like, online worship is interesting because it's kind of both sides of your brain. Like this is a place where churchy people who want to be tech geeks can be tech geeks and still be churchy, creative stuff going on as well. And so on one hand, we got like the people who are listening and just like enraptured with every word you guys said about USB plugging into this and this feed going into here, and oh, this sounds great. And then other people's eyes just glazed over because they're like, well, I don't even know what you're talking about. So for those of you, whatever that was the right side of the brain that just talked techie stuff, great. We're going to the other side of the brain to talk about what this means for ministry now, because that's an important part of this discussion too. So I'm going to start with Sherry this time, and then you can choose who you want to go to, Sherry. But the question is, what has been the most exciting or unexpected benefit of online worship for you in your role?
Okay, well, I'm cheating because I'm going to have 2. But number 1 is relationships. Like, honestly, this is crazy that our new minister, Reverend Shelley, got here right before this happened. I don't even know. I think she might have done one in-person service, and no one knew her. Like, and I got to know her, right? Like, I felt like I had her to myself. And that has to be like the number 1 thing for me, is that I got to spend all this time with her and create a relationship with her. And also all the rest, like all our pulpit supply ministers, got to know them better. Our pianist, Glenn, our council chair, people I knew but didn't know really well. And those relationships are awesome. And it makes me want to go every Sunday and hang out with these people. So I think that's number 1 for me. And number 2 is, like Kent mentioned, I do this for my business, but I didn't do a lot of live stream. So where do you think I learned? I learned at the expense of church. I kind of just found out how to do it and learned doing it that way. And I don't like the stress of the in the moment troubleshooting, but I love like talking tech. I love learning about tech. I love figuring out what we can do to fix it or make it better. And that's been great. And it's been great for my business to be able to learn that, you know, where I'm comfortable and where people were very supportive, and then take that out and do funerals. So those are my two. I'll hand it over to Ken.
So if you'd have told me in February 2020 that the highlight of my week was going to be going to church on Friday after supper, I would have called you a liar. But it has become that. And I know a number of times as a crew, we've talked about it as well. And it's like, does anybody want a break? And everybody's like, no, I get to like leave the house and go out and do things and see people. So very much like what you've got, Sherry, is like, it's like that's become a thing. So that's one of the unexpected things. Another one for me, I was watching, I don't know if people know who Adam Savage is. He was on Mythbusters on Discovery Channel, and I saw a video where, you know, somebody asked him, what's the most obscure skill that you learned? And so he described it, and then I was, you know, preparing the hymns, and I was like, so the most obscure skill that I've learned is I can look at a sound wave out of the audio software and tell you where the video transitions, slide transitions need to be without even listening to it. So you know, for yeah, that's an obscure skill. Like, what else are you going to use that for? So me personally, those are a couple. I'm going to say the last one is being able to actually sit and enjoy worship. As the recorded worship, because when I'm sitting in church and I'm doing sound, I'm listening to the quality of the sound. I'm listening for, you know, if there's anything going wrong, is it sounding good? I'm not necessarily listening to the words. I'm not necessarily participating in worship that way. And doing this, I can go there, I can do that, and then on Sunday morning I can actually participate in worship. And I know our ministry staff have said the same thing. It's going to be weird going back to live because they're not going to participate in worship that same way. They're not going to receive worship anymore. So you know, there's my more than two. Go ahead, Daryl.
Well, certainly, I mean, I would echo the relationship building, but one of the most interesting things for me, from my perspective, last week we had the reading from John's Gospel about Jesus breathing the Holy Spirit out upon the disciples. And in many respects, for me, that's what online worship does. I mean, I'm constantly amazed at the people that drop in to a worship service on a Sunday morning, and I don't know it until afterwards when I'm reading the comments. So like, I mean, you know, hi from Kelowna, or somewhere that I never imagined people would even watch. Some of my own family, some of my brothers who I don't know if they've been to church more than 3 times in the last 40 years, but they've tuned into the worship services. And so we're actually, our congregation has grown substantially. Like, I mean, actually the numbers of people that we're reaching through our Sunday services are far greater than we ever had in church on a Sunday morning. The numbers, it's amazing. And the other piece that I really enjoy is it gives me the freedom then to go and watch the Mayfair service, or I can watch St. Martin's service, and I can have a worship experience myself. Even though, you know, I've provided the worship leadership, I can go and view other churches, and it's just a wonderful experience to me to experience worship in other congregations.
Thanks, you guys. Okay, well, next question. We'll go back to Daryl to start this one then. What's a piece of advice that you would offer for a congregation just getting started, just thinking about online worship?
Well, the first thing I would suggest is make sure you have good internet. And it's however you need to do that, whether, I mean, for a while there, our internet was really poor. We were using a cell phone because earlier on SaskTel had free, there was no data caps on any data that you were using. So I just plugged my phone in and used it as a hotspot is what they call it. So we were using the cellular service because the upload speeds were far greater. And that's what's really important when you're streaming. If you're going to stream worship, is you need to be able to move data really quickly upload it. A lot of packages that you buy have high speeds for downloads, but you need to upload fast, because if you don't, you get really jerky video, or you have to upload it at a lower quality. So number one, make sure you got access to good internet. I know that's not an easy thing sometimes in rural areas. We're in an urban center and we have great internet, and we got ours upgraded. It actually costs us less now when we've got probably 10 times the speed that we had before. And it's cheaper, I mean, than it was before. So good internet, that's first thing.
Okay. Ken?
Sound quality matters a lot. If you've got jerky sound, if you've got poor sound, people are going to be more inclined to tune out. Cats are really important. I love cats. I've got one napping around here myself, but they don't usually show up on Sunday mornings. As I said, we've been recording, and it does take more time than live streaming. So if you can live stream, even in a simple way, it's going to save you time over recording and uploading. But that does mean that you need to have that faster internet. So so the number one thing I would talk about is sound quality. People will put up with a little bit less video quality if you've got good sound. Yeah, Sherry?
Well, I say amen to both of those things for sure that you guys mentioned. The other thing is just to not forget what we're here for, and just know that your message is what's important first and foremost, because I think we lose sight of that. We want to get into the fancy stuff and do it the best. And especially when you're starting, don't be afraid to make some mistakes and to fail. It's okay. I know that they say that, tech, they only notice tech when something goes wrong. Then there's a lot of people that notice. But at the same time, I've had so much support and encouragement from people. Every time we make a mistake or something sounds bad, or there's always those people just saying, it's okay, we're just so grateful for you. There's been so much gratitude. So I have to go back sometimes to say, like, let's, again, like what Kent was saying about why are we here, maybe we have to sometimes go back to that and think about who we're trying to reach and why we're trying to reach them. And do we have to do it in the fanciest way? No. And I know there's lots of things you can spend money on, but I just try to remember that.
But can I'd just like to add something actually to the congregation my mom is part of. They do a lot of stuff just on Zoom. So when we talk about live streaming a service, you could be doing exactly what we're doing here, where you just use Zoom and you invite your congregation members. You pin your speaker and away you go. It's different experience, but it's something. The other thing they do is they're actually pre-recording a service, and they meet by Zoom and have some conversation, and then they play that video of the service through Zoom, and then they have some conversation afterwards. So that's a way to connect people still as a congregation, and that service is then still available for anybody who can't or doesn't feel to like participating through the Zoom call that day. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to pick up on the next. I'm going to skip to a last or one skip to another question here, and then we'll come back to the one that we had scheduled. But Sherry sort of touched on it. What's the biggest screw up or the most embarrassing thing that's happened to you so far that you can share to make us all feel better, so that when something less terrible happens to us, then we know that our tech gurus have messed up worse than we could ever do it? Who wants to go first with that one?
I'll go first.
All right.
Because we record, there are no screw ups. Okay, that's not quite true. But generally we don't have much for screw ups in the service, but people love the outtakes. So we've done a couple. I did a very tongue-in-cheek commercial using nothing but outtakes. We've got the best ministers, and they're like just all over the place, and so recently we've actually started at the end of each of our service, and Daryl, if you're watching, when that screen goes black, it's not over. Wait a few seconds, because then you've got the outtakes going. The commercial, I'll dig it up. It's on our YouTube channel. I'll find it and post a link here for that commercial. But yeah, so because we redo stuff, we don't tend to have screw ups going out as part of the service, but they can be quite funny anyway. So an outtake is when we do something and then it's left on the cutting room floor as it is. So, we started talking through something and then there was a problem. So we, ignored that and do a second one. So yes, very much like a blooper. Yeah. Daryl, your turn.
Well, there's so many to choose from when you live stream, believe me. But the worst, the biggest screw up we had was we were doing the service, and I got through the service and I got all the way. I'd preached the whole sermon, and I'd done the pastoral prayer, and we were just about to do the last hymn, and all of a sudden the sound technician comes up and he starts walking up, and I said, well, what's the problem? So he comes up and he says, Daryl, he said, we don't have any sound. And I said, well, what do you mean we don't have any sound? He said, well, we haven't had any sound. And I said, and we haven't for a while. And I said, well, how long's a while? Oh, he said about 20 minutes. So I said, oh, well, it would have been nice if you would have waved from the back and said we had no sound. Anyways, we just said, okay, stop. We started over. We got the sound up again. So we redid the whole service again. We just went back and started over again. The other problem we had was the computer locked up totally one Sunday on us. It just totally, the only way you could shut it off was to hold down the power button. We couldn't, there was nothing we could do. So we started over again. Meanwhile, once we got it up and running again, we found out that it had continued streaming somehow. I don't know. There was a bit of a pause in there. But, so we had two streams going out for a while. So those were our two major bloopers.
Okay, well, how much time do we have?
Pick your best one, Sherry.
No, maybe my memory's bad. I don't remember anything like specific that was huge, but there's just, it's probably those little things that trip me up. And that, I guess one of the major things then is to make a list. Like I've been procrastinating on making a checklist of just, before we go live, what are the things? Like, I have it kind of in my head, but I think I got it cased. But I know the one thing that I did one Sunday, that was just kicking myself because I knew that my computer did this and it remembers, networks. So then I had it just knows that I'm at the church. So it does its Wi-Fi connected to Mayfair guest or whatever. And then, but we don't use that one. We use the wired one. So I plug in the wired and I have to remember to turn off the Wi-Fi part. And if I don't do that, it clicks back into that one. It likes that one a lot. And then it just messes it up because then my internet's going wonky and it's just, sporadic. And once I figure that out and I put it where it needs to be, do you think it fixed it? No, it just in the middle, it doesn't want to do it then. It needs to be there the whole time. And so it's just those little things that I, there's been a few of them that I just think, okay, don't make the same mistake twice. Like just remember those little things. So
Thanks, you guys. I think I can probably speak for a lot of the people here when I say it's really comforting to hear people who are fairly comfortable with technology still afraid of when things will break down, and when, just to know that you work with the same level of stress that we all do, thinking that the computer is going to reboot at any moment and something's not going to connect properly. There's an odd level of comfort that comes from hearing you guys talk about it too. Okay, the last question before we open it up for everybody else is, what's your perception of what the future holds for worship online, church online, everything? What's the future hold for our ministry in terms of this online pieces? And who should go? I think Daryl, I think we're starting with you this time.
Well, I can speak from our perspective is that we will not, we will continue to provide services online, that when this pandemic ends and we're allowed to worship in person again, that we will continue to live stream. We just realized how many more people we can reach. It's convenient for people, elderly people. There are elderly people who don't function well in the morning, and if they want to, they can stay home then and still participate in worship. Or if you're not feeling well, you can stay home and not feel that you're missing out on the worship service. So, and for some people, I think it just suits their lifestyles better. They're maybe not whatever worship time you have is maybe not their time of day, and when they can watch it whenever they want, I think it just opens it up to a lot more. It's not the same, but it is another medium, and the church has always used technology. We all use technology in our churches. So I think it's just another tool for us to use to spread the gospel.
Yeah. Well, Ken, how about we go over there?
So I just pasted the link into a service called Sermon by Phone. One of the challenges that we've faced is that we do have congregants who do not have internet. And so, we were burning CDs for them. Kathy was burning CDs every week, and then we were mailing out CDs along with a paper copy of the bulletin. And we found this service called Sermon by Phone and have subscribed to that. And that allows us to upload an audio, and then anybody can just phone in. We actually have a local Saskatoon number for it. So people can phone in and listen to the service that way. So that's one of the things. I guess that's what's happening now. I think for the future, we have started to look at getting the right equipment to be live streaming. Just prior to the pandemic, we were just starting a process of looking at renewal of the sanctuary, and part of that was to be, the sound system, as and the projectors and things like that. And so we have reinvigorated that to start by not even looking at the space so much, but we're preparing to order a new soundboard, digital soundboard instead of the analog one we've got, and the cameras to be live streaming, and a video switcher and all of that stuff, so that we can be prepared that when we can start in-person services again, we can be live streaming, rather than saying, yeah, if you can come in person, great, and otherwise, wait till Tuesday and go log into the YouTube and watch the video then. So I think live streaming is a big part of it. For anybody that can do it. As Daryl said, our reach is bigger. We have people from outside of Saskatoon that watch our services regularly, irregularly, who knows, people from all over the world. The other thing I think that is going to be a challenge going forward is actually engaging people like you would with a congregation. In person, we get together after church, you say, hi, how are you doing? We have coffee, whatever, there's choir, there's all kinds of groups going on. And how do we engage people as a congregation when they are not physically here? They're not there on Sunday morning. You know, that's one of the challenges. I was part of a conference the last 3 days, and one of the speakers was talking about, it was a higher education conference. I work for the University of Saskatchewan, so and one of the speakers was talking about engaging the students in class and getting people to help each other and stuff like that. And he said one of the things he's discovered by going with some of the online stuff is that I'm hearing a lot more from introverts that you just didn't hear in class, right? So there's hunger there to engage that way, and having a space, a safe space where you can say, hey, I need some help. And get help. And he used the example of somebody, you know, saying I need a job, and somebody else saying, hey, I know somebody that's looking for somebody, and it, you know, getting connected and working that out. And I think that's part of what church is supposed to be as well. So I just recently I've been thinking about how do we do that? How do we do that as St. Martin's United Church? You know, how do we do that maybe as a wider church to have that safe space? You know, because let's face it, Facebook and Twitter are not necessarily safe spaces. So not when they're open like that. So I've turned my mind to that. I don't have any answers. So if anybody does, that'd be awesome. But I think those are some of the where things are going and some of the challenges we face going forward. And when you think about church without a building, you know, that's what we're doing now. And it's some great opportunities, but also some great challenges. Who wants to go next?
Oh, is it me?
I guess so. Yeah, I guess Daryl started, didn't it?
Thanks, Ken. Yeah, some great points, you guys. I just know, yeah, nothing can replace that community feeling of in-person church. I just, you know, I know that people are just, you know, itching to get back there, and I think, you know, it's really hard to replace that. And I love some of your ideas though about engaging some introverts. That's a good point. I never thought about that way. That's great. I think that we want to do a hybrid situation. I'm sure that's what many people will do, especially the ones that we've been doing live stream. We've invested, churches have invested time, money, volunteer hours, just so much in getting this rolling, and they don't seem to be stopping. So I think that everybody's really happy with that direction, and they're not just going to stop because people are coming in the door. Because like you say, there's so many more people we can reach from, you know, all across Canada or across the world if you wanted, and those people that just cannot come into church. And then, you know, we might be engaging people that will eventually come to our building. And, you know, hopefully that's kind of the idea and where it's going to go. But that's what I just see, a hybrid for most people.
Thanks, you guys. I really do want to give everybody a chance to ask you some questions, but I have to add one more on here that sort of has come out of this conversation. The idea of engagement is a really important one, and I should have included that as part of the discussion earlier. How are you providing for opportunities for that sort of community engagement through the services you're offering right now? Is there chat opportunities or coffee, Zoom? Like how? Just quickly, if you could touch on how are some possible online engagement opportunities available for people? And Sherry, you're
all we're doing is because we're we're streaming to YouTube. So we leave the chat on and we leave that live. And Reverend Shelley, generally when she's preaching, she'll be on the chat as well and try to do it in between when there's hymns or something else going on. She's on the chat, and people share their joys and concerns on there, and good mornings, and it's just its own little community. And I always like going back and reading what people have written. And so it's the only thing about it is it's only for the live, and then you can see those comments later, but you can't engage in that if you're watching it later.
Daryl?
Yeah, that would be the same for us. I mean, we stream to Facebook, so people, in the comment section, but it's really interesting because it's oftentimes the same group of people. We usually have on average at the time we're streaming around 60 people watching at that time, but they're all greeting one another, wishing each other happy birthday or whatever, whatever comments they want to make. So that's how they interact online in the community, or they ask how people are doing or whatever, and carry on these little replies back and forth. But that's the main context for people to engage in the live service itself.
Ken, I guess your situation would be a little different. You're recording, so
yeah. So we have every Sunday at noon we have a community check-in and coffee for those who want to join. I make it some of the time to that, and typically there's 10 to 12 people or so on them. So it's not a big community. And we're, St. Martin's United Church is actually, I think, the second largest in Saskatoon. So, we're not reaching a majority of the people participating in that. So I think the chats during the live stream is certainly a good thing. I do know that we've done we have a children's church that's done through Zoom on Sundays. There's a youth group that is also meeting through Zoom on Sundays. And there have been some midweek opportunities for people as well. So I don't know what those numbers look like, in terms of participation, as I haven't participated in any of those myself. So the engagement is certainly with the recorded is certainly a challenge. I do know that with things like YouTube and Facebook, you could do things like much like the live stream, where you're premiering it, and in fact your live stream is just playing the video. Because I also know, like, when you're doing a live stream, you can insert a pre-recorded video into that stream and continue. So so that might be an option as well for engaging people, is to do that kind of premiere idea and try to get people watching at the same time. Pre-pandemic, we ran 2 services every Sunday. We ran a 9:30 and 11, and so we actually have our video go live at 9:30, and then people can watch it anytime after that. So yeah, I think that's a bit of a challenge. And I do want to call out, just in case people aren't paying any attention to chat there, that Valerie M has posted a suggestion of an article on sense of community. Yeah.
That's great. Thanks, guys. Thanks for you guys. That's very helpful. Just to, we talk about worship being more than just a consuming experience where you're just consuming the product, but you're actually participating and feeling that same sense of community. That's very helpful to see how that different ways we can try to work towards that. Those are my list of questions. What I really love to encourage people to do is to come up with some questions for our panelists as well. I'm guessing probably there's a couple options. If people are comfortable, you can write it into the chat. And I see that Francis? Yeah, Francis has one in there already that we'll deal with. But if you want to put it in the chat, or if you'd like to sort of speak it out loud and offer that, then please feel free to do that. I don't know if there's a way to put up your hand or do something. You know what? We're not a huge group. If you have a question, just sort of unmute yourself and try to jump in and throw it out. How does that sound? But I tell you what, while you're thinking about that, let's deal with Francis's question. So Francis says she's got to duck out. Just gonna watch this later. Our congregation is small enough that we use Zoom and it works well. Once we can have people in the sanctuary, we'd like to keep offering an online option too. Is the simplest way to move to live streaming? I guess that's for all of you. If you were in Lanigan, and what do you think?
Yeah, I think that the simplest would be to do live streaming. You could certainly run Zoom through a phone. And the challenge I see with that would be sound. You will probably want to hook in that camera or the phone with into your soundboard if you've got one. Or put a mic up by the pulpit so that it is picking up the preacher well, as opposed to, as Daryl mentioned early on, you know, we had this microphone somewhere and it just sounded like you were in a big gym or something like that, or a barn with lots of echo. So, so that's where I would look. I know that you can get, you know, I have wireless headphones on. So if I had some Bluetooth headphones and connected to my phone, then I could just drop the headphones around my neck kind of thing, or you could use a little lapel mic, USB or Bluetooth lapel mic or something like that to pick up your sound. That would probably be the lowest barrier to entry. And certainly there's a lot of products out there that could be looked at, but I'm not an expert in those, so I'm not sure what best to suggest there. Maybe Sherry's got some good ideas, being the expert live streamer.
No, I second what you said.
Well, yeah, I guess Sherry and Daryl, you guys are live streaming right now. Any sort of advice as they're looking at getting going on live streaming in Lanigan?
Not beyond really, from my perspective anyways, what Ken said. I mean, I think like if you can get your sound into your system somehow, however you can do that, then that would be your best chance, I think.
Yeah. Thanks. Well, Dawn has figured out how to put her hand up on here, so that's great. Dawn, take it away.
That's really all I wanted to show you, Kent. I wanted to show the teacher that I can put up my hand.
Well, that counts. That's great.
If you want it, you can go under participants and bring up the participant list. And it says a few things, including raise your hand, lower your hand.
Oh, wow. Let's see, it's so much power here. Look, I can lower Dawn's hand now. That's not fair.
But I do have a question.
Oh, okay. Well, that's important. Dawn.
I realized I have a question. So we've been doing Zoom for the whole year, and like all of you have made lots of improvements and have made every Zoom mistake there is to make. But we absolutely love Zoom because we love the full interaction during worship. It's gone very well for us. And we do the insertion of music videos that we make, et cetera, et cetera. But as we look forward to hybrid worship, I'm thinking after this conversation that the best combo for us is probably to live stream while worship. So yeah, to live stream, sort of the way, Daryl, you mentioned it, with mics all over the sanctuary, so that everything gets picked up and a good quality goes out into the streaming world, but everybody in the congregation gets a good sound as well. We were initially thinking that we still wanted to keep streaming Zoom. We wanted to keep the service going through Zoom while we were doing it live, but I'm thinking that's just not going to work. Do you folks have any sense of that? Like, we really wanted to give people that chance for full participation, even when we're back in the sanctuary that Zoom allows us, but I'm just not, the Zoom platform has so many limitations. So any thoughts on that, Daryl? Or Sherry,
Uh,
you are the ones that do live stream.
yeah. I don't know. We haven't really. I mean, we use Zoom a lot for other things, but we've never really incorporated it into the aspect of worship.
Okay.
You can almost do it a little bit opposite. Like, I know for us, we haven't done this, but I know that it's possible. Like, you could, if you already have some scripture readers or some other people on Zoom you want to bring in, like say on their OBS or whatever, we can bring that in. But then I know what you're saying about the Zoom being probably, you like the chat part and that you can see everybody's faces, and probably you're going to have so many of your participants now sitting in the pews. I'm imagining that are you kind of waiting to see like how many people are actually going to be on the Zoom every week?
Well, it's true. I mean, I would say, every congregation has shut-ins, a word I wish we could find a replacement for. But I mean, we genuinely have people who can't get out during normal times. So it really would allow these people to stay in worship. But we did a combo Zoom live sermon or Zoom live funeral. And when the musician played, they had the guy doing the Zoom on his computer had to take it out because the music got so skewed. So it was coming in live into the sanctuary, and then it was a pause and coming through the computer at a different time. So like, we just realized, oh, this is not going to be easy with the lag time. So
yeah, and the syncing up there. Yeah, the music is hard. One thing.
Yeah, but you make such a good point, Sherry, because like, it really would, like, it would allow the people not just to participate, but to participate by we can see their faces, they can see ours, but yes, we could even continue to bring in readers from the Zoom community or whatever. So it's just so amazing in terms of participation.
One thing that we're doing is we are running our live stream. We are putting it on the computer and actually starting our Zoom, so that, because we have a couple people that, like you say, people that don't have anything but a phone, so they phone in and listen. So I wonder if you could do something like that, so it's live and it's those people, and obviously not just people that phone, but people that come on with their cameras. And again, though, would you have to have an extra moderator? Do you have to have?
I know, yeah. But the last thing I'll say is I was really encouraged, Daryl, by the small amount of money it took to get yourself set up. Now, I'm sure that doesn't include all the microphones that you got for your church.
No.
But still, I mean, the price that you name is very, very doable.
Yeah. Well, and as Ken pointed out, I mean, there are lots of people that are using an iPhone and they're getting actually pretty decent quality live stream.
Yeah.
It's amazing. The technology is come so far. And I mean, that old digital camera that I had, we first plugged in, I mean, it worked. It wasn't, the video quality wasn't great, but we had audio and we had sound. And maybe it wasn't perfect, but when we started, and people are very forgiving, as Sherry said, I mean, we make bloopers all the time, but I'm becoming more of a critic myself. When I watch the news, I see how many bloopers they make too, or glitches they have. So I'm saying, well, they're professionals. We've learned this in a year. We're doing pretty good.
One of the things I want to suggest, as we've talked a little bit about video and quality here too, is that we're all used to looking at HD video through our TVs and computers and stuff like that. You don't need to stream HD video. You can stream a 720 or a standard definition video. Standard definition video will use like a quarter of the bandwidth as a high definition video. So if you're in a rural area where you don't have great internet, bring that video quality down, right? You'll save a ton of bandwidth, and people will be much more appreciative. The other thing I want to suggest in terms of continuing to use Zoom is what you're really looking for is something that'll hook to the computer that will say, I'm the webcam. And then that webcam can actually be a video switcher, or that webcam can actually be a video such as a video camera that brings in the sound, and you basically instead of using the camera on the laptop or whatever, you can get some reasonably priced webcams. $100, throw a webcam on there. Maybe a audio capture device to catch the audio straight out of your soundboard, so you get good quality audio, and that's going to take your service and be able to put it out onto Zoom. Pulling people in from Zoom to be doing readings and stuff like that adds a little bit of complexity. Depends on what you've got for technology, and do you have a projector at your church already? Are you wanting to do that? The sky's the limit in terms of what you can spend and what you can do. But I know we're not in a profession that has sky the limit kind of budgets. So Sherry, you mentioned switcher on iPhone, right? I'm not an iPhone guy. But apparently there's a lot of people that really like switcher and makes it easy to do some of that stuff. So
okay, that's great stuff. Thank you for all of you.
Thanks, Don. Let's see. Nobody else has their hand up that I can see, but I'm going to just jump into the chat, and maybe I'll let you know. This, like I said, this will be all be recorded. I'm not sure the chat shows up in the recording, but what I'll do is I'll make sure that I include everything that's in the chat, all the links that Ken has provided and other people have provided. I'll make sure I include those in with the video beneath, so that you have all those links, and I'll send it out to you. We'll make sure that nothing gets lost here in terms of our discussions. Let's see. So Francis had that one. Valerie had a couple of different pieces that I think she mentioned, the Canadian churches that live stream. There's a group that's on Facebook. It's set up by a United Church guy out in Ontario. His name is something Bedell. I've forgotten his first name. John. And that's an active group that certainly, if you're involved in Facebook, it's probably worth checking out to be a part of that. He's done a number of recorded webinars, sort of similar like this, on all sorts of different topics for like sort of the live streaming 101, how to do initial Zoom etiquette, just a whole bunch of really great stuff that we can connect with. You will probably find that it's helpful to search through some of the threads using the search function to find what you're looking for, because it's a whole bunch of people, and some of them are really techie, and they love talking about tech stuff, and it can get pretty deep if you got trapped in the wrong thread. But it's definitely worth being part of and asking about. It's a great place to ask questions, because there's so many people that will throw back answers and responses for you. So that's one we'll be sure to get to you. I thought somebody had a question. Yes, Valerie was asking about offering, and then Jen had suggested PAR and envelopes, and also inviting people to make a donation through your website or e-transfer. Jen, are you here? Do you want to tell us a bit about what you're doing, and then we'll get our three folks here to see if they have suggestions too.
Yeah, so just so we are on Zoom, and then we live stream to Facebook, YouTube as well, so it's all happening at the same time. And just in terms of offerings, so I'll just invite people to reflect on their offerings, and then invite people to drop or mail their donations, and to give through PAR as well. And then if they're from away, to make those e-transfers, and they can go to their website and make donation as well. So that's kind of the way that we handle our offerings there. So yeah.
Yeah, and we still have offering as part of our worship service. So we symbolically offer or make our offerings at that time. And we also have a prayer offering plate, because prayer is part of our mission as well. So we offer our prayers and our resources at that time. So we do that every week. And again, as you said, Jen, offer them the opportunity to e-transfer. We've also registered with Canada Helps. They take us a small percentage, I think it's 3% or something like that, to do those transfers, but they can give online, and we have had people donate from afar, like that we're not congregants.
Thanks. I think what I'll do is I'll try to, because we're talking about online worship and all the different elements, I think I'll include that Canada Helps link in this as a resource package as well. I know it's not perfect, but a lot of congregations use that as a way for people to make online donations. So I'll be sure to include that in here as well.
If you're setting up for e-transfer so that people can send stuff in, remember to set automatic deposit rather than, you know, saying, oh, set your password to offering or something like that. It's much more secure because the money is going to go directly into your bank account, so that it's less likely to be sitting there in an email for somebody to, you know, hack your email and steal.
Thanks, Ken. Well,
I don't think we ask enough at our church. I think we just started. There's only been 2 Sundays that we've actually had a minute for mission, so we're just kind of getting back into that. But we don't really even stop, and we don't do I don't think we do an offering prayer, an offering hymn, and we probably should do more of that. At the end of our service, we have a slide that says all the different ways that you can give, but I think we probably need to be a little bit bolder in asking, especially like you say, far away people, or they might not know even how to get a hold of our church. So
how united church of you to say we should be bolder about asking for money. That's that's a classic issue for all of us.
We want you to tithe. Come on.
Well, we're very close to running out of time, but we have one more question. So I'm going to get to that one, and then we'll wrap up. And please, before we get too deep into this, though, or before we wrap this up, please keep in mind that we can keep asking questions. That we'll provide lots of contact information so that we can create sort of a pseudo network of people sharing together. That's the goal of all of this, is just creating more communities and networks of all shapes and sizes for people to connect with each other. Okay, I am from a small congregation, and our biggest barrier to live stream is not having a team to run the camera. This sounds like a classic problem too. I'm pre-recording and editing services myself, and then leading the same service in person on Sunday morning at church. So far, we've spent $0, which is a pretty good budget. It's doable, but I'm not sure the amount of time I'm spending purely on worship is sustainable. Do you have any suggestions for small teams or individuals to make this easier? And just building on that, maybe that's a consideration too in terms of what we're asking of volunteers, as well as in terms of tech capabilities, skills, time, and everything else. Yeah, it's pretty huge. But what sort of close with this one? The three of you, do you have any suggestions for how to recruit teams or individuals?
Well, I'm not sure about the recruiting part. That's tricky, especially right now. And I don't know kind of what your congregation is, who's there, like if there's any youth that are maybe interested in something, in learning something. But I was just thinking about when we first started and how Dave and I think Reverend Shelley did this once too, is just, and they I think she live streamed, and just with her laptop. And if that's the best way, like especially if you're doing so much work, you know, if this might be the best way is to set up your laptop so you can stream yourself and do it that way. I mean, that would be my low budget and low maintenance suggestion.
There are PTZ, pan tilt zoom cameras that you can get that are remote controlled. The good ones are not cheap. But there might be some options similar to that out there where you could have a camera that can be remote controlled. And especially if you can have a few presets for it where, you know, I'm at the pulpit, I'm overlighting the candle, I'm doing communion at the table, so that you can easily just say position 1, position 2, position 3, and have the camera follow you that way. Again, I don't know what kind of budget you would be looking at for something like that. I remember a demo a number of years ago, and this was for a remote lecture kind of thing, where there was one of those kinds of cameras sitting at the table at the front, and the presenter was somewhere else entirely in this big lecture hall, and he'd say, "Yep, put up your hand if you got a question," and people would put up your hand, and he would zoom that camera right into them. So really cool stuff. I don't know what it cost, but that was a number of years ago, and the camera technology and stuff has just gotten better. I do know that on the Facebook group, the churches that live stream, there has been mention of, you know, ministry people who are like, yeah, I'm running it from the front, so I'm, you know, setting the camera, doing the stuff while I'm doing everything else. So that there's a skill there, certainly, but it is doable. So it's a tough one without volunteers, without people to be doing things like the sound or PowerPoint or camera. But yeah, it's, you know, especially on a low budget. Not sure what to suggest there.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is if you can find find somebody that's willing to give it a try and be patient with them, because it's not always in everyone's skill set. But if you have access to any youth at all, I mean, most of them are fairly familiar with the technology at least, and are probably willing to give it a try. The big thing is the long-term commitment, because it is, as I said earlier, it's a big commitment of volunteer hours to put the service together every week.
Well, maybe that is a great way to, here, I'll pull the spotlights off here so maybe we can see each other. Maybe that's a great way to sort of wrap up our time together. Just to say thank you to all of you, our 3 panels, but everybody that's taking part as well. This has been very helpful. And I'm sure we've just started touching on a lot of the challenges and opportunities with this as well. If there's something, Daryl, you said right at the end that I think may be a good thing for us to leave with, is that we need each other for this. This is not something easy that we can sort of expect somebody else to take on. This becomes a community ministry that we got to work on together. It's not fair, and it's probably not effective, and it's not great. It's not a great ministry model to burden individuals with saying, here, you be our tech everything. You make everything happen, and provide pastoral care at the same time. We have a ministry opportunity here, but it's something that we got to work on quite a bit together. So I would have one final request for everyone. Like we said, we'll make sure that we have information coming out to you afterwards. Would someone be able to lead us in a blessing as we leave our time together? And beautiful online worshipy blessing. And I just saw Ken shut off his microphone. You. Would someone be willing to?
I'm a techie. I'm behind the camera.
Anyone? It's United Church. We're going to sit here until somebody does it.
Valerie was waving there.
Hey, great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Valerie.
I just happen to have one right here, prepared for something else, and so it's fitting again. Let us pray as we begin and continue this work. God is creating new paths and possibilities as we prepare for where we are going. Christ is freeing us with newfound love and grace as we learn from where we have been. The Spirit is revealing new dreams to guide us as we start our journey home on a new path. We take courage in the assurance that God goes with us. We affirm our call to go where Christ leads, and we trust the Spirit to guide us through the challenging space between where we have been, where we are, and where we are going. Surely we are not alone. Thanks be to God. And that's adapted from a prayer for times of change, United Church of Canada. Thank you.
Oh man, thanks, Valerie. Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening. There'll be some emails coming your way with all the lists of information and things that have come up here as well.
Thanks,
Take
Ken.
care. Have a great night,
folks.
Yeah.
Okay, good night.
Well.